"Dad, Mom changes after midnight." I laughed at my son's warning, until I saw what she was hiding in the basement. The first time my son told me his mother changed after midnight, I honestly laughed. Not because I thought he was stupid, because he was 6 years old, and 6-year-old boys say weird things constantly, especially after too much sugar and scary YouTube videos. So when my son Oliver climbed into my lap one Friday night and whispered, "Dad, Mom isn't the same person after midnight," I smiled tiredly and ruffled his hair. "What do you mean, buddy?" He looked toward the hallway nervously before answering. "She talks different. Kids imagine things." That's what I told myself. Then he added something that made my stomach tighten slightly. "And she goes into the basement when she thinks you're asleep." That part bothered me more, because our basement wasn't exactly a normal family space anymore. 3 years earlier, after my wife Emily lost her mother to cancer, she converted the basement into a private art studio. Nobody went down there except her. Not me. Not Oliver. Nobody. At first it seemed harmless. Therapeutic even. Emily said painting helped her process grief. And honestly, after watching her slowly collapse emotionally during her mother's illness, I supported anything helping her survive. So I built shelves down there, installed lights, bought expensive locks because she wanted privacy while creating. Again, nothing suspicious initially. People grieve differently, but eventually things started changing, slowly, quietly. The kind of changes you ignore because confronting them feels uncomfortable. Emily became distant after dark. Not cruel, not cold, just disconnected, like mentally leaving the room while physically still sitting beside us. She stopped watching movies with me, stopped laughing the same way. Sometimes I'd wake around 2 a.m. and discover her side of bed empty. Then, hear faint sounds downstairs, metal scraping, whispering. Once I even heard crying. When I asked what she was doing, she always gave same answer, working. I believed her. Or maybe I wanted believing her because marriage gets terrifying once trust starts cracking. Then, Oliver's behavior worsened. He refused sleeping alone, started leaving bedroom repeatedly around midnight, and every single time, he stared toward basement door at end of hallway. One night, I finally lost patience. "Oliver, enough. There's nothing down there." He looked at me with watery eyes and whispered, "You never hear Mom talking?" Cold chills immediately moved through my chest. Talking to who? I don't know. Then softer. "But she says my name sometimes." That sentence hit differently. Children know when adults lie. And I think Oliver realized from my face that I suddenly felt scared too. The next morning, I brought it up casually during breakfast. "Oliver says you've been talking downstairs at night." Emily froze for maybe half second before continuing buttering toast. "He probably hears television." "We don't have television downstairs." Silence. Then she smiled lightly. "He's imaginative." Maybe, but something about her tone felt rehearsed. Later that afternoon while Emily showered, I walked toward basement door for first time in months. Locked. Of course. I stared at it longer than necessary, honestly, trying to decide whether violating privacy counted as betrayal. Then I heard footsteps upstairs and immediately backed away. That's the thing about suspicion. Once it enters your marriage, even hallways start feeling guilty. That night, around 1:17 a.m., I woke and noticed Emily gone again. Basement light glowed faintly beneath hallway door. And this time, I heard voices, plural. My entire body stiffened instantly. Male voice maybe? Hard telling, but definitely conversation happening. At first I thought affair. Honestly, that felt most logical explanation. Secret late-night meetings. Locked basement. Emotional distance. Everything fit. So I quietly walked downstairs, determined finally seeing truth. The basement door wasn't fully closed this time, just slightly cracked open. And through that narrow opening, I saw something making absolutely no sense. Candles everywhere. Walls covered in paintings. Hundreds of paintings. All same subject. Little boy standing in forests. Little boy sleeping. Little boy crying. Little boy underwater. And every single boy looked exactly like Oliver. My heart started pounding violently. Then I saw Emily sitting alone near center of room whispering toward one specific painting. "I'm trying to protect him." Protect him from what? Suddenly, floor creaked beneath my foot. Emily spun around instantly. The expression on her face wasn't guilt. It was terror. "Mark?" I pushed door open fully. "What the hell is this?" For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then, Emily started crying immediately. Not graceful tears. Full body panic crying. And honestly, that scared me more than anger would have. I looked around basement again, noticing details previously missed. Newspaper clippings, medical paperwork, children's drawings pinned beside paintings. And in corner, a hospital bracelet, tiny one. My stomach twisted immediately. "Emily, what am I looking at?" Then she whispered sentence, changing my entire understanding of our marriage. "I had another son before Oliver." The room felt suddenly airless. "What?" She collapsed into chair, shaking uncontrollably. And slowly, the truth finally came out. 10 years before meeting me, Emily gave birth to a little boy named Jacob. Premature birth, complicated pregnancy. And at only 4 years old, Jacob disappeared. Not kidnapped, not murdered. Disappeared emotionally. Doctors later diagnosed severe neurological condition after traumatic brain infection causing catastrophic developmental regression. Within months, Jacob stopped recognizing people. Stopped speaking, stopped functioning independently. Eventually, he required permanent long-term medical care. Emily was only 24, single, terrified, and according to her, Jacob's father vanished immediately after diagnosis. No support, no help, nothing. For years, she practically lived inside hospitals and care facilities trying to save her son, until finally one specialist told her something devastating. "Your son will never come back cognitively. Not physically dead, but psychologically unreachable." Jesus Christ. I sat there stunned beyond words. Then Emily whispered, "I buried that version of myself alive. Apparently, after years of emotional collapse, she signed permanent state medical guardianship allowing specialized facility care Jacob needed, then moved across state entirely trying to survive unbearable grief. That's when we eventually met. And according to Emily, she genuinely believed she could start over, build new life, new family, new identity separate from overwhelming trauma. Except trauma buried alive doesn't stay buried forever. When Oliver reached same age, Jacob was before illness. Everything resurfaced. The paintings, night wandering, obsessive fear, whispering conversations. She wasn't talking to ghosts. She was talking to memories. To guilt, to version of herself permanently trapped beside hospital beds years earlier. I stared around basement again, understanding differently now. Those paintings weren't madness. They were grief with nowhere else going. Then I asked question haunting me already. Why didn't you tell me? Emily looked shattered. Because every time people hear about Jacob, they look at me like broken glass. Silence-filled room. Then she added quietly, and I was terrified you'd think loving Oliver meant replacing him. That sentence broke something inside me, honestly, because suddenly I understood this wasn't deception for manipulation. It was survival through compartmentalization. Still, keeping secret child from your husband for nearly a decade destroys trust profoundly. Both things can be true simultaneously. Then came worst part. Oliver knew more than we realized. Apparently weeks earlier, he accidentally discovered basement during afternoon while Emily grocery shopping. Saw paintings, saw photos, saw medical paperwork mentioning another little boy. And because children fill missing information with imagination, he convinced himself mom became different person at night because basement transformed her somehow. Honestly, can you blame him? Even I barely understood what I'd seen. The following weeks became emotional warfare inside our house. Long conversations, therapy appointments, anger, confessions, truth finally flooding spaces silence poisoned for years. At one point during argument, I finally snapped. You should have trusted me enough, tell me. Emily screamed back through tears. I didn't even trust myself enough remembering him? That shut me up immediately. Because deep down, I realized she wasn't just hiding Jacob from me. She spent years trying to hide him from herself too. Then one afternoon, Emily showed me something changing everything. A box hidden behind basement shelves containing hundreds of unsent letters, all written to Jacob. Birthdays, Christmases, hospital memories, apologies, pages and pages of grief nobody ever witnessed. One letter especially destroyed me emotionally. It read, I had another baby today, and for one terrible second, I smiled without thinking about you first. I'm sorry, Jesus Christ. I sat there crying quietly, reading words never meant for anyone else, because how lonely must motherhood feel when guilt punishes even your happiness? Eventually, after many painful discussions, Emily asked question terrifying both of us. Do you want meeting him? Jacob, now 14 years old, living inside long-term neurological care facility 3 hours away. Honestly, part of me wanted refusing, because once reality enters marriage, pretending becomes impossible forever. But another part understood something important. You cannot claim loving somebody while only accepting peace is easiest carrying. So we went. The drive there felt endless. Emily barely spoke entire time, hands shaking constantly. Meanwhile, Oliver sat quietly in back seat, confused but curious. When we arrived at facility, Emily nearly turned around twice. Pure panic. Then finally, we entered. I'll never forget seeing Jacob first time. Thin teenage boy sitting beside window, stacking colored blocks silently. Vacant eyes, gentle expression. And when Emily whispered his name, he didn't recognize her, not visibly anyway. But something unexpected happened. Oliver walked over quietly and sat beside him, then started helping stack blocks without saying anything. For nearly 20 minutes, both boys just sat together peacefully. And suddenly, Emily completely collapsed, crying into my chest. Because maybe for first time in years, her two worlds existed same room together. No more hiding. No more locked basement doors. No more midnight transformations. Just truth finally breathing openly. Things still weren't magically fixed afterward, though. Trust takes longer rebuilding than revealing secrets. But slowly, our marriage became more honest than ever before. Emily stopped locking basement, eventually transformed part of it into shared art room for Oliver too. And once secrecy disappeared, the darkness lost power somehow. Before I finish this story, there's one final thing you should know. A few months ago, I woke around midnight and noticed Emily gone again. For one horrible second, old fear returned instantly. Then, I walked downstairs quietly and found her sitting beside Oliver painting together, both laughing softly. No secrets, no whispers, no shadows, just family. Oliver looked up smiling and said, "See, Dad? Mom doesn't change after midnight anymore." Yeah. That one hit me hard, because maybe people don't become monsters in darkness. Maybe unresolved pain simply grows larger when hidden too long. So now I want asking you something honestly. If someone hid devastating part of their past because they feared losing the life they rebuilt, could you truly forgive them?